evacuee. I said, mister, I can't evacuate my own guys. I'm not going to do it for you. And I gave him a morphine. And I left them. I checked the other guys. And they were dead. Then I didn't feel as people today would expect to take care of the wounded and so forth. I just felt my obligation to get back to the outfit. I drew a line. This is all I'm going to do now. I'm back to the outfit. The guys, and we moved on.
Yeah, you got your obligation.
Yeah. But then again, I didn't feel that obligation so strong. But when we found out about Malmedy, and we found out about one of our guys that was captured and then killed, and they were supposed to take care of prisoners, they weren't. And then in this place where we relieved the 5th Infantry in the foxholes, they would infiltrate our lines. A couple of guys were caught, killed with, strangled at night. And that's why this young man, I told you, I went through who wounded himself, self-inflicted wound. Well, he hurt, but the night before, they were skirting around all between us. And that's scary stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't sleep too well. And when daybreak came, we had to have the energy to do what the mission was about. So I just, I think back on how can a person do all that? Not sleep, be under fear, and drag yourself and take up a new mission. And then all the time, cold, miserable, and all the time knowing they have the advantage. And you're going in there and you're looking at this town and somebody's down in the basement firing back. In one town, not our company, but I think it was a company, moved ahead of us. They had to cross the stream and move into this town where white flags were flying from every house. The lieutenant of a company was going to take the forward point with a squad, assuming these flags mean that's an open city, we called it. He walked into the town, there was a platoon, they killed him. The A company guys that were behind, the sergeants, the non-coms, and they had some rough non-coms. These non-coms were very angry from previous experiences and showed no mercy. Okay. Then, after they found that out, they went charge from house to house, very systematically, throwing hand grenades at every layer, every open window, and from the front, from the back. And trickling out came more German soldiers. Some of them who assumed like they were the snipers, they were done in. Take no snipers. Now, where did the order come from? Take no snipers. I don't know, but I remember hearing it. Perhaps it came from some angry corporal, sergeant, even a private. But when in the heat of all this bitterness and anger and fear of being done in, it's either you or them. And I was reaching that point because I carried a weapon. But it was somebody may be coming after me, and I don't want to be open to it.
Did you ever use it?
No, I did. No. But I did. In one case, the guys talk about this. I don't know if this is going to be good news. We were strafed by American airplanes. No bits airfield. Our platoon was to take certain territory on the periphery near the forest to clean it out. And then we had to cross. We're crossing the field, and here come our own P-51s. Shot one of our guys through his stomach. 50 caliber. So we dash and run to a nearby home, which was very wealthy residents. Ran down to the basement, and I was getting a little excited about things going on here. You know, these are our planes, and look what the hell they're doing to us. So I pulled out my gun. They came down very low. I said, maybe that's the bastard that took my plane. The enemy back to see if we.
Sometimes it doesn't quite start.
Yeah.
As you got deeper into German, every battle, of course, could be the last one.
True.
The idea somehow that, I mean, I understand exactly what you meant when it's in the big picture, you know, the war's almost over, but down at the platoon level,
we were told we're expendable. We had a lecture like that.
You did?
Honestly. This guy was the orator, first class, Sergeant Covey, 44th Infantry Division. He spoke such oratory that officers would listen to him. And he gave us to talk about being expendable.
Not very reassuring, though.
It took a long time to accept that.
But you finally did?
Sort of. So that even towards the end of the war, when they said, you did a wonderful job, now you're so experienced, we need you in the Pacific, and you're going to the Pacific. Well, that was a clear message. You're expendable. You got this far, man, you're not going to get through that. But, you know, there were a number of things that happen to have historical significance. For example, the concentration camps. When we got into the little villages of Germany, I would find people locked up into back yards of factories. Barbed wire all around, and there's people sleeping in there. Not in the building, outside the building. Raggedy looking people. So I go to the fence, and I look, and I saw some people that had the P on them, which means Polish, and they had the star for Jew, and various symbols for each nation. They had to be identified. They were forced labor. And these were like prisons associated with this factory. So I go to the fence, and I spoke Polish to the man and asked him how he happened to get there, and he told me his plight, that he taken from Poland, worked here, worked there, and that in his travels he noticed that he was able to maintain his strength and health. Therefore, he was treated better than some of the other people in the other camps. So I got the message. Well, there must be some kind of a system that these guys that worked here had some kind of treatment that people in other places didn't have. Then he told me about some other Poles that had big trenches and knocked trees down, and they built blockades to stop the Americans. So those laborers were used to do that. But if they didn't, he said, if they didn't have the strength, they would go back to this other place or somewhere else. And sure enough, as we advanced, our division took about 300 pounds, anywhere from 300 to 400 pounds. As we advanced, sometimes we took 5 towns, and I'd find somebody who speaks the Polish language. Very very rarely the English. And I'd ask questions. Sometimes I got in from good information. I would ask, well, up ahead in that forest, did you see any enemy there? He says, yes. What kind of weapons did they have? Did they describe them, or did they have any trucks? Did they have tanks? So I'd get that information and relay it on to the sergeant. So we had information. Sometimes it wasn't good at all because maybe that's the way it was yesterday. Today is something else.
Did you find any camps as opposed to the labor?
Yeah, that's when we started getting in deeper. We found a camp at Langensalza, which is near Buchenwald. Buchenwald and Dachau, that way.
But Dachau is right outside of Munich.
Okay, that would be further. Langensalza is, I'm going this way because when I look at the map,
it's further west.
It's down here.
Further south.
And that's where they had one. And dead bodies there. And you can smell the odor a long way away. I talked to some people there, and they were looking for me to help them. I told them I can't help them. I'm with a unit, infantry unit. I'm not here to feed you. They're looking for food, begging for food. And I said, there'll be somebody later on that'll come. Leave if we have to go. I saw some of that.
It must have been hard.
Yeah, and there were other thoughts too, though. What if we get caught? And then there were some Americans. We came across some British. They were skeletons. And well, geez, we get caught. In this progress that we're making, we have no newspaper. We have no news of what's going on elsewhere. And that would help if we knew that the Russians are carrying on something. That we know that the Germans are getting busy up there, because in our minds it was we're squeezing them and they're going to get tighter and tighter. And there were labor camps, there were prison camps, there were labor camps of different dimensions, different levels of cruelty, concentration camps of different levels of cruelty. And it must have been really systematically organized. Somebody knew what the heck they're doing. It's for their own advantage. The tattoos on the arms, that's true. That I saw some of that. We had the experience of standing in front of a compound. The slave laborers were in there from different nationalities. And our company went through the town, got to this compound, which was on a high ground. The guys circled it. Some guys were standing and talking. We were sort of relieved. No more resistance. It's going to be the end of our day. We can probably find a lodging, a billet, and lay down, and somebody else is going to pull guard duty. Another unit is going to go through. So the guys are standing, relaxed. Somebody got out of this compound, a person with black and white stripes, ran up to one of our guys, pulled a rifle out of his hand, swung it around, and a guy on a bicycle, German civilian on a bicycle ride, and he shot him. Gave the rifle back.
At a debt
Close
to pay,
proximity.
At a debt to pay or something.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How far east did you get with the 76th?
We got into Chemnitz, Zwickau. Chemnitz, you'll have to look at a new map, a revised map, because the name of Chemnitz was changed. That became the Russian sector, and they called it Stalingrad, something or the other. Gave it a different name, Russian name, but now reverted back to Zwickau. That's where I met my first Russians. I had a nice time with them. They understood Polish, spoke Polish, they spoke Russian to me. Many words are similar. I could fill in the blanks where I missed, get the gist of what you're saying, and things that we talked about are simple, stupid things. So there's nothing hard to figure out. They impressed me as guys that were really determined, almost on the border of fanatic, poorly dressed, unable to communicate too well with maps because we had to designate to them where we are and where we're going to leave and they're going to take our place. I talked to the lieutenant. He was 18 years old. He got a battlefield commission. So proud of that. And he carried a bunch of medals. We didn't wear our medals. It was a different approach to it. I asked him for some cognac, and it was in that, no, it was another town. In this town, they had the warehouse, liquor warehouse in their possession. So I asked them for bottles of stuff. And they had 3-Star Hennessy. Where in the hell, you know, they're in Germany. 3-Star Hennessy. And they said, oh, that's good. Here, vodka. What vodka? You could have that. 3-Star Hennessy, got that. We had a nice time with that. In Oberlungowitz, we were in charge of the liquor warehouse.
You, obviously from your conversation, it hasn't been easy for you to get past some of the things that you've experienced.
Oh,
And you aren't past them yet, really.
I guess I'll never look.
Had trouble sleeping after?
Remember I told you I could have taken advantage of the GI Bill?
Yeah.
Well, we had struggles with what's this life about? What would be worth doing? And I thought, well, I could go to university while I become an engineer. Here's my parents. They're somewhat becoming destitute in that my father lost his job. He worked. See, he didn't work for many years during the Depression. When the war came on, he worked in a factory that made bumpers for trucks. Well, that,
not going to last.
yeah, that last. So he was out of a job. He looked for jobs, couldn't find jobs. I came home. They had a slight mortgage. Then again, my Catholic education, values, you know, parents. My sisters were all married. Came home, said, okay. The subconscious value system's working there, and I'm tormented with, you know, what skills I have and what should I do. So I went to look for a career. I said, well, what am I going to do? The best thing to do would be to find a company that will be in long existence. What is it that people need most? Well, I thought food, electricity, automobiles, maybe not. Well, I went to the electric power company. I said, may I see your employees' manuals and things that you give your new employees all about the company? They gave me that. I went home and I studied it. And then I saw a pattern that I could work into. I had a good technical education. I was good in math. And I saw that this company required you to start at a given point, and you could if you had the proper skills. So I went below that. I knew they weren't hiring. I went to the personnel office. I said, I would like to work for your company, and I wouldn't mind starting as a meter reader, providing you give me consideration within 1 year to be here because I have this skill, and that skill. And then after that, I would like to move into this position, and I would be willing to go to night school. So they said, this guy in personnel had a low wall. He stood up, and they said, Bill, listen to this guy. I said, well, where the hell did you get that information? I said, I just feel that I just want any job. I want some direction and a little carrot to follow. So they hired me. And they implemented much of what I said. And I felt good about that. I felt satisfied. Such a great satisfaction. Then when I took the job, as I moved into different positions, I went into one that required a lot of engineering, drawing, and layout work, which was very technical. For instance, you want to make a ball to carry water. You want to make a tank for a community. It's a funnel, it's a cone, and it's a cylinder, and it's a dome. And all that is made from flat steel. Each piece or pattern has to be made separately, and when it's folded, it better fit. Well, you pick up a baseball, it only has two pieces. But to make a sphere, you have to make many segments containing the pound thickness of the material involved. Very technical. And I just love that stuff. So they gave me double raises. I felt good about it. And I got recognition because I did the work well and I got it out in time. And a couple of times I thought that they were working me too hard. They said, okay, we'll give you a helper. They gave me a helper, but the helper held me back, falling behind work. Then they said, well, in due time we'll work out. Then they gave me a couple of other guys, and I kept falling back first. Then I went to the local tavern in the evening, and I talked to my buddy who worked for community college. I said, you know what I'm doing? I'm doing all this. I've got this work that I like, and these guys are coming in, and I got to tell them 10 times, 15 times, watch them. They still can't do it. Oh, he said, what you're doing, you're training. I said, I'm training. They told me to break them in. Oh, that's training. That's what's called training. The other guy said, hell, that's teaching. So it was all right teaching. I said, you guys need a guy in a community college to teach? He said, go over there, talk to him. Sure enough, they hired me for the same amount of money in community college in 10 months that I was getting in this industrial firm for a whole year, 2 weeks vacation. Well, I got to the community college. I taught nights 4 days a week. Friday I had free. During the day, I pursued a bachelor's degree, got a master's degree, got a doctor's degree. And I was the guy who had a doctor's degree in a community college, right junior college, Chicago. And the administrators didn't have one. So, what am I doing with this doctoral? Well, it was in research. So, research methods, Loyola University, staff, and so forth. My advisor was Dr. Mayo, who was the editor journal of psychometrics. And so I had that skill. And the University of Maryland needed somebody to direct a $250,000 project in technical education. So I came up, took that project, got another project. And then the projects dwindled down. There was less federal money. So then I had to move into undergraduate studies again. And today, my advisees work here at University of Tennessee. Cliff Campbell, Dr. Cliff Campbell. Mm-hmm. Oh no, that's only one. The other guy that's in this shop is my other advisor. So it was some time before I started to go back to school. The GI Bill was over with. 7 years was over with. Mm-hmm. I worked, I got good money, good salary, helped to pay off the parents' bills. I had a nice saving because they were paying me well. Like I said, they're paying me double with increments. Now, once they called me aside, they said, you're the highest man here. And we got people here working 25 years, 30 years. We don't want them to know what you're earning because you're at their salary level. And that's going to cause a hell of a lot of problems. So I kept my mouth shut. Then what I ran into was the work was no longer a challenge also. When I started messing around with that. So the GI Bill was over with, but that was a tormenting time. The GI Bill was there and I wasn't taking advantage of it. I had satisfaction in work, but at times, what the hell are you doing? You're letting all that go by. That made me interested in talking to guys. How did they feel? They had GI Bill coming and they did not take advantage of it. And I talked to some guys that told me some awful things. They said that they know a guy who took advantage of the GI Bill and some kind of flying. He just said he wants to be this and that, but he wasn't serious about it. He just used that. He really did not live up to the career that he declared he would follow. And a number of other guys mentioned the same thing. So if you wanted, I would give you these things.
Yeah, I would.
The following is an interview with Dr. Walter S. Mietus, Mietus, 10818 Pleasant Acres, Adelphi, Maryland. Lecture conducted by Dr. Charles Johnson, Center for the Study of War and Society, University of Tennessee, 9th, 1995.
Problem here is when I think about those experiences back there, I get mixed up between the feelings of a boy back then, and I'm looking at it as an older person now, and I'm saying, God, how could a young kid do that? You know, why was a kid exposed to that? Particularly in the impossible situations of going up a cliff after you first cross a river, and the enemy is up there in the cliff shooting down, like the 417th Infantry. It doesn't start in one book. But they had to cross the Solid River with the guns hitting the boats point blank. My buddy was killed, and I was in the 385th, so we were in reserve. But when I was there in reserve and became aware of the situation, I thought that was the stupidest thing anybody would tell somebody to do. Go through that area, go through the river, go up the cliff. I think the 417th lost, maybe a whole company. Just a little attempt. But then when I think of it, how I felt when I was a kid, I wasn't that afraid. I felt that I'll make it, you know, or death isn't so bad or something. It was just you did what you had to do. How old were you? At that time, 19.
How old were you when you went in the service?
19.
Yeah, 19.
Oh, wait a minute. Let's see. I went in the service in 19. I have all this written at home. I haven't read it for a long time. I graduated from high school in 1942. February 42. And then I bounced around. I completed courses in the technical high school. Tillman Tech of Chicago was a very interesting school. It was all for totally boys. And they gave you the opportunity or guided you to get two things, college prep and a trade. So I took aircraft engine mechanics for a year. I took a lot of drafting for several semesters. And when I graduated, the war effort was blooming all over Chicago, and they were putting up a naval factory for weaponry for the Navy, and they were putting up you're taking that off. And they were putting up factories for building aircraft engines. Mm-hmm. And I thought, that's great. I mean, I had a whole year. I had aircraft engines 1, aircraft engines 2, a whole year, and I applied. I went to the personnel person, and I said, oh, this looks good. This looks nice. Oh, you had machine shop too. Yeah, and you had a lot of good math, and you had good record in science. And, yeah, okay. I wanted the job. And I said, well, I'll tell you what. I see that you're classified A, which means you're draft A1. A, that's right. Well, prior to graduating from high school, we got the papers for induction to fill those things out. So in the meantime, the school process is this, gets to the right places, and then later I go take an exam, a physical, and a mental, and 1A. So I was happy about that. I would feel so bad with how it turned out. We all wanted to get in. And I went to their employer, and then he said, we'll call you. And we didn't have a phone. The lady next door had a phone. So I gave the lady next door's phone. The guy calls up, and he said, you know, you're 1A, and we see that you would need some training in internal grinding and things of that sort. We'd have to train you, and it would mean an investment on our part. And if we do that, you may be inducted. So couldn't get you, what do you call it? Permit. Well, about my father. Okay, he was illiterate when he was a boy. He came from a big family. There was a family near Zakopane, which is near Krakow, that had no children at all. And they needed somebody to tend the sheep. So my father, as a young boy, instead of going to school, was given to that family. And so my father's oldest brothers were interested in leaving Poland, so they joined the German army. This is back before World War I. There, they could earn hard currency. So the two brothers joined the German army, earned hard currency, came to the United States, went to Chicago, worked in the meatpacking plant. Their job required them to be there 5 in the morning, and they would work till 7 in the evening. So they worked in the meatpacking plant all day long. Prior to leaving that employment, they brought my father over, who was the youngest brother for them. He brought him over. And then the two older brothers said that was enough. At least when they lived in Poland, they worked on a farm. They were poor. The scenery was beautiful, but it was a hard struggle. But they said they'd rather die under the sun and sing in the nice weather and stuff than inside of a plant. So they ran right back. And my oldest uncle somehow got caught up in World War I, ended up in Siberia, died in Siberia. And now my father got married to a young girl that came from about the same region. And she had 3 years of education. She was very, very smart woman. And she created her own dictionary. She got to the States. She married my father, and it was a matriarchal family. Her mother was not really good at thinking and gave direction. She was a wonderful person. And I had 4 sisters. None of them completed high school. The oldest one, who is still living, I communicated very frequently, speaks Polish because in our home we spoke Polish, and we all Polish speaking. I went to Polish Catholic elementary school. We received the morning in Polish language. We received religion in Polish, history of home in Polish. Now the religion in Polish cited all the martyrs, the sacrifices they made, and how they believed in religion, and how wonderful that is to fight for a purpose and for a goal. Then in the afternoon, in American history, it was, to be an American, to be like our forefathers, the sacrifices they made, heroism, and all these things.
You got it from both directions.
Yes. And then when I finished the elementary school, Polish Catholic elementary school, I wanted so badly to go to public high school because I saw that there was a difference, some difference. I wasn't able to analyze it, but the boys that went to public school seemed to have more fun. Where we were regimented. You came there in the morning, 8 o'clock, and you went to church. First thing in the morning, went to church. And you were marched. At the end of the hall in the school was a piano. And one boy was designated to go to the piano and pump the piano, and it would be a military march. It was played off the piano room. And we'd all march, trample, march to the church, column 2. Went to church, came back from church, and we studied. And there was some difficulty for me because a lot of the kids had nice, there were things for break. They had a recess. I had nothing. The Catholic school required a tuition. My family couldn't pay it. So we were one of the families that got free Catholic education. But nevertheless, I didn't like it, but they were very good. Because when I got to public high school, I couldn't believe what was happening. The English class, the teacher, Mrs. Burns, gave us an assignment to write a theme. I went home and wrote the theme, handed it in, no sweat. And the next day, I was so embarrassed because she said, "Walter, would you come over here? Would you stand here next to her desk?" And she was reading my thing. God, this is our boys' school. And I said, "You see how it's organized? You hear how this thought is evolved?" And she pinned it up there on the bulletin board. She said, "You sit up front." Hey,
Tough on a kid.
so I immediately see that they did a good job in language skills. Writing, anyway. They may not communicate verbally too well, but when it came to writing, I had all the kids beat in high school. Well, then, when we were in the senior year, we were talking about the war and what do you want to do? This guy wants to be a pilot. This guy wants to, I want to be a pilot too. I don't want to be in the infantry. Who wants to be in that? You get in that dirty mud and so forth. And the guy said, "I'm joining the Navy." My father said, "You want to trade?" And I wanted to be a pilot. The influence of the movie, James Bond, and all that glamorous stuff, the planes flying and so forth. But if you look into the history of drafting and enlistment, there's a period of time in November about 43 or 44 where enlistment, you could not enlist for a given time.
Yeah, a good part of the war that was the case because the military wanted to be able to funnel people where they needed them rather than where they wanted to go.
Yeah, I'm glad to know that. Well, I had my classification, and I wanted to first I went to the Marine place, and they turned me down. They said, "You got an overbite within the second." I remember that. I didn't know what it meant. I still don't know. So okay, the Marines were out. And then I wanted the Navy or Air Force, but that was closed. So I had to wait it out, and I was drafted. It was interesting because they sent us to Fort Sheridan, Illinois, and placed us in a large hall, and they were administering these tests. And I was trying to beat the test because, well, if I score good in this sound of interpretation, they're going to put me in Signal Corps. I don't want Signal Corps. They give you a tone, and they said, "You will hear 3 other tones, 1, 2, and 3, on your paper. Put which one of those sounds like the first one." I go, "Bing," and then there's several other ones. And so I thought, well, I don't want Signal Corps, so I just put it down. Hell, they're going to put me in that. I don't want that. But I tried on some of the others, particularly the technical ones, pretty well. If I show my skill there, I'll be placed in some kind of maybe mechanical place where mechanical aptitude is required. But it didn't work then. They just took all these guys, put them into 44th Infantry Division in Fort Lewis, Washington. And I had basic infantry training. And then somebody divined the fact that I should be a medic. So they gave me maybe 5 weeks of training as a medic. That would be how to administer morphine, how to take out blood, how to give bandages, first aid, things about hygiene that I could communicate to the troops. Then the Army and the Air Force were one unit. There was an ad in some kind of a Tacoma Park or a Tacoma, Seattle newspaper, and I saw it one Sunday morning, and it said, the enlistments to the Army Air Corps are open. I guess they saw a great loss of men at that time.
Pilots pretty heavily in 43, I know.
Mm-hmm. So they opened them up, and I filled out the form, applied. The form was mailed to a certain place. And prior to that, I wrote letters to General Hap Arnold. And one day they called all the guys, this is in the 44th Infantry Division. They called us all out and gave us a lecture about the chain of command. You do not write letters. Somehow my letters were getting somewhere, and it trickled out from the top down there. I was telling General Hap Arnold, the skills I had and what I wanted to do. But it came to be. It seems like if you keep it in mind, it'll come. So I filled out that form, mailed it in, and sometime later a letter came, and I was told to pack up. I'm going to McCord base in Oregon, short distance. There I was like detached. I was no longer with the 44th Infantry. I was detached. I was some kind of figure just floating around in the building. I had no duties. Hardly anybody ever came around. I was like a lost soul. And finally something came. Everything took 6 weeks. After 6 weeks, the message came that I have the orders. I still have the orders. That I and about 12 other guys from the division are going down to Amarillo, Texas, for further tests and examinations for qualification for the Air Force. So then we went down there and we had all kinds of examinations of psychomotor skills. Some of them required you to take a wand, which was on a spring, and was electrically charged, so that it was a rotating disc, and there's a little tiny dot that you had to follow, and they would speed it up, and then measure your abilities in that particular dimension. And it was depth perception, looking over a table with 2 sticks in the distance. We had to do that. Yeah. And then they spun us around in some devices, and then asked us to walk a straight line. Spun us around to touch your nose and this and all kinds of things. And then the one that I really didn't understand for years later when I made a mental flashback was this. In Amarillo, Texas, they had a big pile of scrambled wood, looked like beaten up railroad cars, just up real high. Then years later, I took the picture in mind, and I remember seeing this booth that looked like an outhouse over here, and the booth was an outhouse over there. And it hit me like this, lightning. There must have been observers in there, because they gave us an assignment. They said, gentlemen, there's about 16 of us. You have to do something we need badly. We are going to have to put a building here in this spot, like a barrack. We want this stuff moved over to where the lines were designated. Then they left. And we were there. With no leadership. Nobody, who was standing looking at each other. Well, look, I took some stuff and walked over and put it down. First, I thought maybe I should put them in an orderly manner, but nobody said orderly manner. Right? Took another trip, and I took another one, and then I'd walk up to the place and just throw it. And other guys took the longboards and made a litter. Stacked the stuff, and 4 guys picked up this huge litter and carried it there. Well, now I'm thinking, there's something going on. I didn't realize it then, but we were receiving some kind of evaluation. I don't know what it was, and I'd sure like to get the records, if there are any military records, on what they were doing there.
Someplace there.
I'd like to see what they thought of me. Well, at Amarillo, Texas, they decided I did not have any college preparatory work, and that the Air Force required at least 2 years of college or some equivalency. So they sent a number of us to Moorhead, Minnesota, State Teachers College, which was transformed into an air cadet school. So we had classes from 8 in the morning till 5:30, 5 days a week. The 6th day, we flew indoctrination flying at Hector Air Force. Well, it was Hector Air Force Base, but today it's Hector Air Force. Today it's Hector Air Force, I think. We had such wonderful experience. We were learning. We were doing good. We had the book from West Point was in our room, and we had to study it because every now and then we were challenged as to what it would say about certain concepts, such as defiant military discipline. And if I recall, the first line was something like, military discipline is that mental attitude and state of training which renders obedience under all conditions. That was the first line. You get that West Point book, look at it. And you tell that to somebody today. Under all conditions. We accept it. For our meals, we had long tables, white cloth tables. We had candles on the table. We had china, maybe the ceramic, but we had the silverware. We ate square meals. No talking. One man was in charge of the whole table. Occasionally, the lady in charge of the kitchen would give us classes on proper approach to eating, mannerism. The English teacher in literature would teach us about courtesy, mannerisms, behavior, polite behavior, things of that sort. They're trying to make gentlemen out of sow's ears, which was very nice. I mean, I never had such a nice time as there. And then in about,
before you go out, what did you folks think about you going to the service? Was this,
my mother took it hard. My father, I don't know how he took it because he was not very expressive. But the day that I was leaving to Fort Sheridan, it was early in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning. I had a report to the draft board for the town. There was a bus waiting for me. My mother and father came up to me and excuse me. One day, when I was in the Air Force, in the Army training, Air Force training there, we completed our college training. We were packing up to go to California for our basic training, because that was just indoctrination flying, and that was to bring you up academically to be able to face some of the more challenging work in the Air Force.
had you done any flying yourself? Were you in the cockpit flying?
Yeah, it was the very second day. The trainer, he sat in the front seat, he sat in the back. We had gosport equipment. And what that is the trainer up front would be able to talk to us, and we had these mechanical devices in our ears, much like a doctor has.
Yeah.
And he would talk to us, but we could not talk back to him. And so occasionally he would give us some harassment. Just chew you out, and try to get you upset. And in the middle of a maneuver. And I did make a boner one time, but he said he gave me exceptional grades for that particular course. One time a mistake was doing a figure eight. I just made a mistake and put it into a dive. And I made the bank and the turn. Now he instead of grabbing the controls, to make matters worse for me, I knew something went wrong, and he could see me in the mirror. He threw up his hands like this, like he's ready to jump out of the plane. But then he saw that I wasn't still responding correctly, so he grabbed the controls, and we were in the spin, and he straightened it out. And then I never heard of the end of that. And that was in my 9th hour, and the 10th hour would be the last one. And he told me, Walter, I gave you perfect grades only up to this point. What went wrong? I don't know what went wrong. I just momentarily lost something. So we were all packed. We were going to go to California for basic training. The next day, after we were packed, there was a letter from Hap Arnold. And the Captain Bazada, in charge of Moorhead, Minnesota, Air Cadet Training Program, called us all out and had a booming voice, giving us some very important information. We thought it's going to be, we're going to California. And he said, I have a letter to read to you from Hap Arnold. And he regrets that he has to let us go because men are needed in the ground forces. And Hap Arnold said he realizes that we are eager to face the enemy. I had that letter, I'll send you a copy. We're eager to face the enemy, and that we wouldn't mind giving up our training so that we can carry out these new assignments. And that we are potential officers, and that when we return to the ground forces, we should go to OCS. Oh, geez, that was awful. So they packed us up and sent us to Camp McCoy, Wisconsin.
It's a big camp.
Yeah. And, we had cadet uniforms. So they were nice officers up the thing. They're not like the GI stuff.
Yeah, the blouses.
The blouse, yeah. They had the wing here on a cuff and a wing in the calf, a garrison cap. Really sharp, pleated in the back. And when we were there in Moorhead, Minnesota, we were met by a tailor who tailored our clothes. Our shirts were form-fitting, pleated in the back. Oh, what a spiffy outfit. Then we had to go to Camp McCoy, turn all this in. Turn that in, we got, this stuff doesn't fit. This is too big, and it looks like a rag. Then one of the officers, who must have been ready to retire, very illustrious man, tall, gray, good physical posture, the appearance of almost a movie star. You know, he had the cavalry leggings, leather leggings, and swagger stick. He had us come to the ball field. He had a little stand. He tapped the stick. He said, you know what? You men, you were going to be technicians. That's all you would be, a technician. He said, now you're going to be a real soldier. You're going to face the enemy eye to eye. Oh, dude. So he gave us that particular talk. I'll never forget that. And so we, oh, dude, I don't want to be that. I want to be a pilot because I want to be a pilot after the war. I want to be. And so our morale was real low. And for days we talked about it because they didn't have much duty for us. They were being quite clear as to how they're going to divide us and assign us. Okay, then.
When would this have been? 1943?
44.
44.
May.
What was
After D-Day.
Okay, it would be June, July 44 then. D-Day is in June.
Oh, no, wait.
44.
Wait. Must have been before D-Day. I have the dates at home. Yeah, I have that all along. I kept the law.
If you could send me a copy of that. So now you're going to meet the enemy eye to eye.
Okay, we're there in Camp McCoy, Wisconsin. It's Camp Knoxville today. And talking about it, hey guys, you gonna take the chance to go to OCS? And so, well, what about that? What would you be? Well, you'd be a platoon leader, become a lieutenant. So, what other things do lieutenants do? And, well, you figure out some strategies and you lead the men. What's the position of the guy? Does he tell the guys to go and stay behind? No, you go up front and display leadership. Well, what's the life of an infantryman? Some guy said, well, in combat, 40 seconds. Well, I was called into the day room. I turned, and they were asking me questions about what's happening in the Pacific. What do you think is going to happen there, and what strategies do you think the military should take in the Pacific? They asked me about some islands I never heard of before, and I admitted the fact that I wasn't keeping up with all the conflicts in Europe. That I basically just picked up a few good books now and then, and wasn't following that. It seemed to be too complicated, and they said, well, how would you like to go to OCS? I said, sir, at the present time, my morale is pretty low, and I don't know if at this moment I'd make a good officer. I don't think maybe I would. So, okay. There were 3 officers sitting at the table listening to this question. Okay, you can go now. And they had to stand up and salute everyone. So I was assigned to medical battalion. In November, we went to England. If I back up, maybe I was 6 months in Camp McCoy. With the medical battalion, we had classes and lessons and so forth. And we have to go to the firing range and do the observations, making sure that nobody gets hurt if they get hurt. Exercise the proper techniques. Then
training was pretty good.
I was bored. I was very bored. After I got into combat, I wasn't seeing the wounds that I was taught to cover. The first bad one I saw was an entire scalp gone. And yet, it seemed the guy was conscious. His eyes were moving.
When you were in the States you were at McCoy, say from April or the spring of 44 to the fall of 44, and
then we left for England. We were in England in 44, Bournemouth, England, and we jumped off and got up in January. We were in France, but right at the border of Luxembourg.
Did you enjoy being in England? Were you there very long? Or,
No, I didn't enjoy being there. It was cold, it was damp, and it was black and white. Those book covers there are black and white, and that's the way England looked to me at the time. Bournemouth, because there was no heat, there was no electricity. I had to spend the whole Saturday to find a place to get a bath. We lived in a big hotel. I went down to the bowels of the hotel to find a laundry room. It was all damaged. Nothing would work. The towns close by were restricted. We couldn't go outside of Bournemouth for the next town. It was confined to that particular area, and it was damp and cold, and you're on the ocean. So I would go to the beach and look out at the water, but that was depressing because they were the railroad barriers behind the railroad barriers, or before it were barbed wires, and then being known to every Englishman was the fact that there were pipes that carried fuel oil through the pipes deep out into the water. So if the invasion was occurring there, they would release the oil and ignite it, and the whole shore would be burning. Then near every corner of the city was a huge tank, which today when I look at a swimming pool that the people put up in their backyard, the plastic thing, well, those are types of things they had on corners filled with water so that their firemen could fight the fires from the incendiary bombs. Occasionally you could hear a B-2 rocket bomb going overhead. You could hear bursting of bombs in the distance. And then we ask the question, is that theirs coming over or is that ours practicing? Question.
Now you were with the 76th by then?
Yeah, that was the 76th Infantry, also in Camp Coin. The 76th Infantry Division was a training division for a long time. They were Fort Meade, Maryland. And while they were in Fort Meade, Maryland, they trained a lot of men that went off to form other divisions. One of the men trained in Fort Meade was Hardy Murphy, who's been sent to another division.
You went off the 3rd Infantry, the 45th.
Mm-hmm.
You went to France, you crossed the Channel, and go to Cherbourg, or?
No, we were landed in Le Havre.
In Le Havre.
Now that was a terrible scene. Coming in on this, was a Polish ship. A Polish ship that ran across. I felt at home. Then aboard the ship, there was a fishing ship. Like a miniature factory, I guess. They caught fish and so they cleaned it up, but it still smelled of fish. So we crossed there, and somehow we got hung up on a sandbar or something. And it was the longest time before they got something over. And sometimes that particular gangplank wasn't hooked up right. The boat moved and fell, and the guys fell in the water. Not to get hurt, but just messed up. And it was cold. It was very cold. November, December, extremely cold. By the time we unloaded, it took all day to get the guys together and organized. We couldn't build fires. We were forbidden to build fires. It was very cold. But we were able to go to a big pile of our duffel bags, A and B. And we knew what's in each bag. So they said, go to your duffel bag and take out as many clothes that you feel you could wear and put them on. Because you won't see those bags anymore. So we go, I put my winter underwear on. I put my OD, the brown pants, those on. I put fatigue pants on top of that. Then we got issued new combat field jackets. We didn't have them in England, but we got some over there. And under I had a knit brown sweater. Under that, an OD shirt. And then a winter underwear shirt. Then over all that, I put my overcoat and a cap, which was wool, and the helmet and gloves. What kind of boots do you have? Now that's a sore point, because we had our combat shoes, no boots. The combat shoes with the thing here. No, they were reversed leather, where the smooth part of the leather was inside and the rough part was on the outside. But if you got caught in water, it went and soaked your feet. So there we were, from that point all the way to Luneray, Luneray. It's near Luxembourg over there, the country of Luxembourg. We were without boots. And finally somebody smartened up and they airdropped boots. But all those boots were secondhand. They came from casualties. So we made a dash in the snow to get these boots. And the boots that I got were just much too large, so I stuffed it with straw. And you want to see that awkward looking bunch. Shoes that don't fit and they're walking around.
All the socks that you could put on and then straw.
Yes. And speaking of socks, that's interesting because after that point, I never got another pair of GI shorts. What we would do is, once we were committed to combat, we'd go through these little villages and towns, and you'd run. When you had an opportunity, you'd go into a bombed out house and go through some stuff and get a pair of socks. So I had sometimes white wool socks, sometimes green ones, sometimes blue ones. Then I would also change my underwear. I didn't have my GI underwear on, whatever I could find. And there was a lot of it to be found if you had the opportunity to look for it.
Were you attached to a particular company or a battalion?
Yes.
Or?
When we were out in France, our whole medical battalion was broken up into separate units that would serve a regiment. And then they broke this group up into guys that will serve each platoon. And it was out there in the cold. It was so cold, unbelievably cold. Some guys got frostbite. That they said, okay, guys, we're going to make it possible so that the first guy's assigned to a platoon. You'll be there a week or two, and then we're going to rotate you and send another guy in your place. That never happened. Once you were out there, you were stuck. So I was assigned to one platoon, and hung with them for a long time.
Which company, battalion, do you remember?
Oh, yeah. It was 385th Infantry Regiment, 1st Battalion, Company C, Charlie Company, 1st Platoon. And I get together with them every year. A couple of times I was asked to leave the platoon and go with another one, which was probably more in a more hazardous position. And I didn't like that because they were supposed to have their own medic. But they lost him. They did not send a replacement. And the bad thing about that was I didn't know those fellows as well as I knew these. And there was just such a need to know who you're looking at, because sometimes I had to write out slip attack. The rule was when you get to an injured man, you figure out what's wrong with him, write up a tag, give him the proper aid, and then ask the guy with the radio to contact somebody back there to come and pick him up. Well, sometimes the radio didn't work. The guy laying. We had a guy laying about 10, 12 hours. And he was bad shape. Well, I didn't like being assigned to another person. I like to stay with this one, but occasionally I had to do that, and I didn't like it. And then what got me more disturbed was the fact that I was supposed to be rotating with somebody. And what happened? I don't know. Maybe back there they changed officers and forgot their plan. And so that was. But again, to practice what I was taught, there just wasn't enough training for some of the things. For example, the guy had shrapnel in his jawbone was severed here, the jawbone was hanging, and he didn't have a compress bandage. I don't know where he lost his. Couldn't take his off, and I fumbling around, and then I looked down on the ground. There's a hanger wire, clothes hanger wire. And I took that, and it worked real well. I just happened to loop just right, put it around, and then I bandaged it up. Man, hanger wire is the best thing you can do because you need another hand if you're going to do a bandage thing. So this way, I just flipped it around and tied it around, and it held real well. So in my two cases, I had one here and one here. I had all kinds of stuff. I even carried cognac, a bottle of cognac. And I carried some candy as, a guy would say, God, he's got a terrible headache. I said, oh, I will take that. I got some stuff there, man. This is real good. I gave him a little sweet candy tonight. But how is it? Well, that's a new kind of stuff. Well, let's see, what do you call that when you give somebody a substitute for
Placebo.
placebo? Right, I forgot that. So I used some placebos. I had that secret. I like my secret.